Hello and welcome to Tai Kwun Contemporary. My name is Tobias Berger. I'm the head of art at Tai Kwun and one of the curators of this exhibition beside Katharine Dome. The exhibition is called Ink City, and let's have a look at it. So, yes. Ink City is a thematic group exhibition where we tried to re-look at ink art in Hong Kong or from a Hong Kong point of view. We tried to look if artists today look at the city, look at gender, look at different ways at the world than traditional ink artists. The exhibition starts here at this wall, and it's a really good introduction to what the exhibition is about. On the left is Wilson Chen, who's, beside being a great craftsman, also a wonderful painter, looking at Hong Kong and how Hong Kong is displayed today. One of his signature trademarks, one could say, are these skyscrapers that he makes into persons. But he also talks about gender, he talks about how we are living in that city and how we have a very, very special relationship to this environment, especially these skyscrapers here in Hong Kong, how they become almost family, almost surrounding us every day. So this work, where he looks at skyscrapers from before 1997, the day of the handover, and after, is on the one side a work that talks about urbanism, it talks about gender, it talks about gentrification, but it also talks about the political environment here in Hong Kong. Then on the right we have Lam Tung Pang, another Hong Kong artist, and Lam Tung Pang's trademarks are actually, he works on these wonderful plywood sheets where he paints with ink, and you see him or a figure that looks a little bit like him, like the artist, but could be everybody, almost constructing a city. I mean, the city and the mountains almost resemble Hong Kong, but it can be quite generic. But I like that work very much because it really talks about how the artists are looking at the city, are constructing the city, and almost deconstructing the city, and by doing that. And next to Lam Tung Pang, we have Louis Chan's Illegal Immigrants from 1985. And Louis Chen is maybe the most important artist for that show, because the whole idea of the show about looking at the city in a different way came from my research into him, and how he, like here, this is a great example, illegal immigrants, and in that time the immigrants came primarily from mainland China and from southern or from Southeast Asia. So you had Vietnamese immigrants, you had Chinese immigrants, and they all came together. But also what Louis Chen very wonderfully displays here is the rift between very poor Hong Kong and very rich Hong Kong, the upper class and the lower class you see here. And therefore illegal immigrants is almost is a painting that symbolizes that exhibition, because next to him you have Chu Hing-hwa, who is an artist, and we live, we have to live, you have to work, is that work. And you see how the beggars, how the thieves, how the people pushing or collecting the paper all have to work to survive. So he doesn't take a look on this very glamorous Hong Kong we always look at, but really on the everyday people, on the people who are working hard. This exhibition is not only about Hong Kong, it's also about a little bit about China, but how also the environment changed. And Ink City by Chen is a great example of that. The artist lived in Guangzhou in the 2000s, in the early 2000s, where really Guangzhou and Shenzhen and the whole Pearl River Delta changed a lot. And he would draw on A4 papers ink drawings, and one after each other, hundreds of them. And out of these, he made actually 4 movies, and we are showing 2 of them here. And they really show how that industrialization, one could almost say it, of all of that did not only change the cities, but also the people living in these cities. From Chen, we are making almost a step back to Li Yin and Wei Dong, both mainland artists But for us, these artists are very important links, almost one can say, to Chinese literati art, Chinese literati ink painting. Literati art came a lot about showing certain scenes, but also about craft, about how do you paint a mountain, a river, a sky, and Lian here takes actually the idea of old scrolls, of old connection, but he says, look, we cannot explain these scrolls anymore because we don't know how these relations were, we don't know how people felt and were connected in that time. Therefore, we have to bring it into the contemporary, into the new. And he therefore takes himself, his friends, his colleagues, and he makes these wonderful scrolls of that. We have a short one here, and then a very long one, which goes back actually to a scroll from the 11th century that is a time of the Qin, a time when Chinese Han artists, a time when Han people lived very harmoniously together with a lot of different minorities, and he has this huge long scroll. That's the first time it is shown in Asia, and he takes himself again and all his connection and all his artist friends and so on, and makes it and reinterprets that. Wei Dong is a very different artist, but he's the idea of taking literati painting, and you see it in his backgrounds. His backgrounds are perfectly painted. He's a really, really good craftsman, but then he puts very contemporary images on top of it. You see these two, which are almost American-inspired pin-up girls, very erotic, or these kind of new interpretations of people in the army, very sexually charged and very provocative, but again on a background of a very, very well done and very, very well executed Chinese ink painting. Here we have Joey Leung talking about Lions Rock for Hong Kong people, the place that is always Lion Rock was always an important place for Hong Kong, but then there was this important series Under the Lion Rock that really talked about the everyday people living in Hong Kong, understanding Hong Kong, and again, like with Chu Hing, making their everyday life in Hong Kong. And here you have everything in this idea of Lion Rock, but then you have it all based on women's legs, and they are so wonderfully painted on top of this kind of hair, where these legs and the line are resting. So, and with a quite melancholic poem contributed to Lion Rock. So beautiful work that has a lot of meaning. And Sherry Fung is a very young artist. She just graduated from Chinese University a few years ago, and this one is based on a game. It's a very famous game where always the bigger animal eats the smaller animal, right? But on the end, the mouse actually eats the elephant or scares the elephant, so the mouse wins against the elephant. So again, a lot of ideas of everyday life, of how society works, how capitalism works, but also beautifully executed in this painting about lions and wolves and little animals. I talked about gender a lot, and especially in the beginning with Wilson's idea about gender and how he uses skyscrapers, but also here these beautiful four drawings which are basically boys, men making gymnastics. It's quite sexually charged, but it is always with Wilson, it's kind of ambivalent in which direction it goes. Is it homoerotic? Is it heteroerotic? Is it bisexual? So there are all these kind of connotation in Wilson's works. But on the other side, and that is, I think, what is always fascinating in ink art, it is so well executed and so wonderfully painted that it kind of balances itself out and makes it a very, very interesting and challenging works. And if we talk about sexuality, somebody like Wallace Ting and Louis Chen again become interesting, because Wallace Ting is an artist that is known, especially in the art market and the commercial gallery, very much as a very beautiful, colorful artist that is more or less quite decorative. However, if you really look at his work, and if you look at his earlier 1960s, 1970s work, or you can have a look at these wonderful books like this one here, which is called Hot and Sour Soup, which is from 1969. And here in these books, he actually talks quite hardcore about sexuality, about the body, about his desires, and it is really a book that can easily stand beside some of the most radical avant-garde concrete poetry of this time. It is, interestingly enough, published by Sam Francis, another superstar of the 1960s and 70s, and he talks about that, but he also talks about the world, he talks about China, he talks about everything that is very, very directly related to life and politics in that time. And the beauty about that is, with these books and connections to works like that, we certainly look differently at these artists, and we certainly see different things, especially if you have this powerful horse beside that woman, than you would have interpreted it before. The same it is, you see Louis Chen with woman kissing, with bare-breasted woman, so that all tries to refresh or re-look at amazing artists that we look at quite a lot here in Hong Kong, but I think we try to change or shift the perspective a little bit. I think Evelyn Tay Chong Wang is an interesting artist about shifting perspective. This has a beautiful title. It is a Hong Kong Dutch client licking my arm during the massage treatment. So Evelyn, when she came from China to Europe, she actually worked in these massage parlors in Amsterdam, and she talks about her experiences there, the friendships that she formed there, the camaraderie, but also the very strange things that happen in massage salons all over the world. But this idea of communication, of being togetherness, is, I think, very important. And it is also a work. It's a work by a woman artist, and we have really tried in that exhibition very, very hard to include a lot of women artists, because traditionally, again, ink art is a very, very male-dominated art form. Other than Irene Chu, there are very, very few ink artists that are very known. However, we bring in Evelyn, as we said before, we bring in Joey, but we also have this wonderful artist from the mainland, Tao Amin. And Tao Amin has made these books. I think there are about 24 of these books, and they're all rubbings of washing boards. And for her, rubbings are always in China. Normally, they're made of gravestones or important saying or scores. But for her, she understands that these washing boards, they really tell the story of a life. They're used every day over and over again. They're the place also, these washing, where people meet, where women meet, where stories are exchanged. And she talks about another alternative history. She talks about an oral history. She talks about a feminine history in these works. And a lot of them also have little stories attached to it. So it's really a work where she reinterprets the idea of the rubbing, of the ink painting into something new from a very, very feminist perspective. And this feminine perspective she takes again, Tao Min takes again here when she develops a calligraphy on Nushu. And Nushu is actually a language in Hainan that is only spoken by women. It's a woman's, it's a woman's language. It's a spoken language, but she makes that calligraphy for that. However, what she also does with this calligraphy, she tells a story, and the story is about what women do to each other. So it's actually, again, it's a verbal thing, it's an oral story, but it's also it's kind of a very mean story she tells here. She tells the story of one woman bullying another woman in class and then later feeling sorry about it and what she has done to her. So a very, very beautiful and personal story. And we end this room with another work by Evelyn Tao Cheng Wang. And Evelyn actually was born in a male body, but decided that she wants to move over or to transfer in a female body. And this work is about that. And you see her on it, and you see all these things that are very feminine, like hygiene pads, the vibrator. But for me, what is also wonderful is actually that frog, because the frog, as the frog king, is a beautiful idea of a being, or a frog, and then you kiss it, and then it becomes the prince. So an easy transformation into something completely different. So this is a beautiful work talking about that of her. So we go over to the video room. And this is a beautiful video by Howie Chu. And Howie was born in Hong Kong, but then he grew up in Canada, and he grew up with a lot of Hong Kong Cantonese movies, but also with Japanese manga. So he combines that all in that wonderful scroll, and he kind of tries to recreate Kowloon's walled city. And Kowloon walled city was a place that was very odd, because it was actually owned by the Chinese, but because they could not have any police in there or any law and order, it was basically a free place, which neither the Hong Kong nor the Chinese police could restrict, and therefore a lot of things happened in the city. Certainly there was a lot of riot movement. There were doctors that came from the mainland but couldn't practice in Hong Kong, so they practiced there. You could get a very cheap haircut. There was a lot of illegal food production there. So all of that he puts into that wonderful drawing of Kowloon City, where you see people doing, you see a dentist, and you see food production, you see people living there, you see people getting killed there, all that. And then he animates each of these little scenes and puts it into a video. And so the video is like hundreds of different scenes that run in random order. So here I'm standing in the hallway almost of Frog King, and Frog King is mostly known in Hong Kong as a performance artist. He did actually the first performance in China ever in 1979, when he made a performance on the Great Wall of China. And since the last 10-15 years, you would see him on a lot of openings, doing his wonderful performances, interacting with people, giving things away, throwing things out into the public. But he's actually not considered an ink artist. What is interesting is that a lot of the things you see and a lot of medium he works with is actually traditional ink. So for us it was important, if we do an exhibition about urbanization, about city, about the density of that city, that to include Frog King into that exhibition, and therefore he made that wonderful installation here, especially for that exhibition. So this is our studio gallery, and it starts with Yan Chi-chang work Massacre. This work is from 1982, and it's quite extraordinary work because he just finished university at that time, so he had a very classical education at the Central Academy, and in that time what you would mostly learn in Central Academy would be socialist realistic painting. And he comes out after 4 or 6 years, and what he does is this very direct, very almost brutal work called Massacre, where he talks about, he doesn't talk about one special massacre, but he talks, I think, about the cruelty of the world. It's probably the things that are happening, and I think he just frees himself with that work from a lot of traditional works that he has learned, and the way he has learned that. Su Jun, another Chinese artist, almost working or thinking about the same period of time in China, right? This actually is a work from 2006, but it also talks about the People's Revolution. It talks about certain times in China, and it plays on this idea of propaganda and the people living during that time. In about the same time, in the 2000s and earlier, here in Hong Kong, we had an artist called the King of Kowloon, and the King of Kowloon was probably sorry. Okay, I just started. Okay, at the same time in China, at the same time in Hong Kong, we had an artist called the King of Kowloon, and the King of Kowloon believed that he is part of a family that actually owns Hong Kong, and that large parts of Kowloon should be his. He should be the King of Kowloon. Therefore, he called himself that, and he tagged a lot of places like doors, bridges, electrical boxes, everyday places in the urban environment with his kind of trademark calligraphy. And he talks about the King of Kowloon. He talks about his ancestors, and he is an artist that is very much loved in Hong Kong, that has not been exhibited a lot in the public institutions, but there are films about him. He would have been turned 100 years this year, so that would be another reason to include him into that show. But also, if you think about urbanism, if you think about the city, and if you think about ink art, he's a wonderful example that you normally don't put in that tradition of ink art, but we tried to question certain ideas here. And this idea of questioning, the idea of symbols, is very nice here in this wall, which talks about monuments, which starts with the Queen, but the Queen in a very naughty way, painted by Wilson Che again. And then you have here "Go Save the Queen," certainly coming from "God Save the Queen," which talks about Queen Victoria's monument in Hong Kong, which is a monument that everybody knows and that has moved over the years in Hong Kong into a lot of places, that has been taken out of Hong Kong during the Japanese occupation. But there was always kind of a symbol of Hong Kong, and Frank Tang actually researches that history. He researches the history of the Queen Victoria in Hong Kong, how she was painted red, how people played with it, how people used it as a symbol of both the colonial powers in Hong Kong and other powers. So Frank actually is beautiful because he uses ink painting as a research tool, as a way for him to look at things like the Victoria Monument, like monuments in general, to understand Hong Kong better and to do more and more and deeper research into it. So moving out here, we have Lam Tung Pang, and Lam Tung Pang painted raindrops, and he painted these raindrops originally at the window of the newly renovated Hong Kong Museum of Art. which after 5 years of closure finally opened again, and you have this beautiful view out of Hong Kong, out of the skyline. But it was also the day when the new national security law was announced, and therefore for him painting these raindrops was quite symbolic. And it is a beautiful end to that exhibition, because here you see the sky, which is a blue-black sky with a nice Lam Tung Pang work. As an endpoint of the exhibition, but also maybe as a beginning of another exhibition. Yes, therefore, this is the end of the exhibition. As I said, it is an exhibition. It's about, I think we have 19 artists in the exhibition, about 50 artworks. The exhibition will be on view till end of July 2021. And I thank you all for listening to me, and hope you can visit Tai Kwun Contemporary in the future. We are open for everybody, and we are looking forward to everybody coming here. Thank you.
Hello， 大家好，我係麥城 Ink City 嘅展覽嘅助理策展人徐文娟 Jill。咁跟住落嚟咧，我就會順住呢個展覽嘅網上導賞團之後咧，如果有一個 Q&A 嘅環節，如果大家有任何問題想問我哋嘅話，我哋都可以喺呢度為大家作出解答嘅。頭先我哋有觀眾問咗第一個問題係呢一次嘅展覽點樣突破咗水墨嘅傳統？咁話說咧，就其實可能好多人有去過廟小麥花齋或者係睇嗰啲故宮啊，都知道傳統上面嘅水墨咧，都係相對比較出世一啲嘅，即係可能遠離凡塵啊，遠離繁囂，係一啲古代嘅文人雅士逃離咗市區，逃離咗凡人嘅生活，喺一啲歸園田居嘅情形底下創作得比較多嘅。咁所以好多時嘅內容題材咧，都係以山水畫為主，或者係一啲同世事唔係太緊密扣連嘅情形嘅啲內容同主題啦。咁嚟到咗當代嘅水墨咧，其實我哋會發現有好多時就已經唔係咁出世啦，而係可能做咗好多入世嘅舉動。咁與之相對應咧，就係可能一啲中國嘅理論，譬如話出世就係可能道家一啲嘅哲學就係與世無爭。咁如果係入世啲咧，可能其實有一啲儒家嘅哲學喺入邊嘅。咁其實我哋今次嘅主題，今次嘅水墨嘅展覽咧，好多時就係想帶出原來我哋當代水墨當中其實好大嘅比重嘅創作咧，已經係做緊一啲與社會時事議題有好緊密關聯嘅作品。咁譬如話有我哋頭先有講到過 Wilson Share 嘅作品啦，石家豪嘅作品就好多關於城市嘅建築啊、城市嘅變遷啊，或者係性別題材嘅作品，咁都會係用佢好巧妙、好精細嘅工筆嘅技法嚟將佢表達呈現出嚟。咁與之相對應都有一啲可能係關於我哋城市景觀上面，譬如話獅子抹精神就真係講到好香港、好日常、好貼地、好貼近我哋生活嘅主題。咁之餘咧，都有一啲譬如話夢露台啊，譬如話 Joey Leung 嘅夢露台呢一系列嘅作品，咁佢就係好切實地反映咗香港嘅發水樓嘅現象，即係譬如話香港好多私樓啊，近年因為地積比率同埋豁免嘅計算問題咧，佢哋都會喺無論幾細嘅單位上面都會做一兩個露台。咁呢個都係好現實、好社會、好民生嘅議題。咁 Joey Leung 就用佢好，梁家賢呢位藝術家咧就用佢好細膩嘅筆觸同埋係一啲好可愛嘅形象，因為佢嘅 signature 嘅 motif 就係一啲好可愛嘅少女形象啦。但係佢內表內裏內涵嘅意義就係其實係探究緊發水樓同埋佢自己處身於一個露台當中，又有一個露台，以及少女嘅身上又生出一個露台嘅呢種好荒謬嘅現象嚟表達出我哋現實世界嘅種種奇特嘅新嘅問題咯，可能係 咁我哋頭先有第二個問題係why are the works all aligned in the same alignment？ 咁so maybe I'll answer this question in English first, and then I will also turn back to Cantonese. So as you may aware or not aware during the online tour just now, a lot of our works, almost all of our works, are actually aligned all in the same horizon line, same line. So actually there is one important motif and one small gesture embedded here. So as you may have seen that this exhibition is called Ink City. So of course we are trying to put this whole exhibition or decorated it as something similar to a city. So this horizon line is actually something similar to our sea level. So from what we are standing here or what you are seeing from the camera, you are maybe standing across from the city and standing from across a Victoria Harbour. And what you see here is the sea level of a Victoria Harbour. All the works are hanging in the same line, just like how our skyscrapers growing up from different points of the Victoria Harbour, and then also maybe there are landscape of mountains, and then different buildings, different culture, different people enjoy themselves or having their life in different level of the city. And then of course the vitrines here, somewhat also similar to the Victoria Harbour, the reflection of the glasses is just somewhat similar to the reflection of the water. Also, if you have one step further, this may also look like traffic, just like one of ourselves every day going through the city, driving cars or taking metro, taking MTR, going to work basically as BCS every day. So this whole alignment of horizon line is actually a metaphor of our city, and so when the audience coming into the space, naturally you are just becoming one another citizens in the city, and we're trying to use art to provoke some thought and let all the audience just like another citizens to really think into the social issues and maybe gender issues and the urban renewal, urbanization throughout the days that you may not aware of during your daily life before seeing this exhibition, before seeing this ink artworks. 好，咁我用廣東話講翻頭先個問題啦，就係有個觀眾就問點解我哋嘅展覽咧，全部嘅作品都係掛於同一個水平線上面嘅。咁其實呢個都係我哋費咗好多功夫嘅，因為我哋呢一個展覽當中咧，啲作品你都見到係有大有細，有高有矮啦。咁其實唔係一個好正常嘅、好常見嘅做法，將佢哋全部擺埋同一條線嘅喎。咁其實我哋之所以會想要做一個咁樣嘅策劃咧，某程度上都係一個好似城市嘅象徵。咁譬如話，可能你哋大家都已經非常之清晰地知道，我哋呢個展覽叫做墨城啦。咁一個城市，尤其是香港呢個城市，我哋最可能好 aware 好清晰地覺得係一個城市嘅象徵係咩咧？可能係我哋嘅維多利亞港啦，可能係我哋嘅海岸線啦。成日我哋喺世界上面見到香港嘅象徵都係香港嘅維港夜景。咁其實我哋呢度就係模擬咗一條香港嘅海岸線出嚟。咁譬如話你而家所見到嘅角度，或者係我而家企緊嘅位置咧，就好似喺維港嘅對岸望向維港嘅另外一邊。咁我哋所有嘅 work 咧所有嘅作品掛喺同一條線上，就如同係我哋海平面線上邊生出一座一座嘅高樓大廈，或者係有唔同嘅山，有太平山，有跟住唔同嘅高度上面咧，又有唔同嘅種類嘅人，唔同種類嘅生活模式。有啲係求存，有啲係中產，有啲係可能係高即係水平面上面高啲嘅形式嘅生活。咁我哋都希望用一個好抽象嘅形式，或者係一個好象徵嘅形式嚟用作品嘅 presentation 作品嘅呈現方式嚟帶俾大家一個好直觀嘅觀感。咁另外都可以見到我哋呢啲展櫃入邊咧，展櫃自身都係一啲打斜放嘅形式，咁其實都有某程度上有一個好似象徵緊我哋維港嘅水啦。咁上面我哋有玻璃嘅反射，就有啲似你如果搭緊天星小輪就會有見到維港嘅波光粼粼嘅差唔多嘅效果。咁冇錯，所以我哋 總括嚟講，都係想用水墨畫嘅呢一種藝術嘅手法嚟探究一啲關注於社會更多嘅議題，就好似你觀眾入到嚟我哋嘅展場當中，好似成為咗我哋呢個墨城入邊嘅其中一個市民，又好似作為你本身一個市民嘅角色，點樣可以用日常嘅角度去睇一啲平時可能覺得習以為常，但其實背後又隱藏荒謬嘅一啲議題。第三條問題係頭先有個觀眾就問咗我哋關於女書嘅呢一個作品嘅問題啦。咁其實咧，我哋呢度有2 set 嘅呢個女書嘅作品。咁女書咧都一個相當有趣嘅一個話題啦。其實佢係一種可能喺度 elaborate 多啲頭先 online tour 或者係觀眾未能夠親身嚟到香港嚟到墨城睇呢個展覽嘅時候咧，可能未必清楚知道女書係乜嘢嘢。咁其實女書咧係一個喺中國某個省份嘅農村當中，女性慣用同埋淨係得女性先至識得使用講嘅一種語言。咁佢嘅寫法咧喺就算係我哋21世紀嘅人或者係男人都係一種睇唔明嘅語言，但係佢哋係有自己一套語言體系嘅。咁佢除咗呢個藝術家陶藝文用女書嚟做咗一套書法嚟表達一啲女性之間嘅故事，一啲恩怨情仇又好，好細膩嘅感情嘅故事又好，嚟用女書嚟描繪咗佢呢啲女性嘅故事之外咧，我哋仲有展示咗一系列嘅真係女書嘅書卷。咁呢個女書嘅書卷點解得咁特別咧？頭先阿 Tobias 都有講到話，其實呢啲女書嘅書卷軸每一頁咧都係一個洗衫板嘅拓印。咁其實點解洗衫板嘅拓印會值得喺呢度被留念咧？其實好多時咧，呢一個就係嗰個農村嘅女子一世嘅記錄。呢個就係好似一個水墨同埋一個物件作為一個人嘅文獻一個記載咁樣。就事緣，因為好多呢啲農村嘅婦女咧，佢可能一世人都未踏出過佢嘅小鄉村一步，又或者佢唔會唔識得講普通話，佢可能用佢哋自己村莊嘅方言嚟做日常嘅交流啦。所以佢又唔識字，又冇出過省嘅時候，佢一世就係喺佢嘅小世界入邊辛勤地勞作。咁到佢至死嘅嗰一日咧，即係佢可能老咗之後，或者係過咗身之後咧，呢個女人嘅一世嘅故事咧就會隨風消散，而唯一可以好似對佢呢個人生有一個記載嘅就係佢每一日使用嘅嗰塊搓衣板，就佢每日喺上面留下咗佢嘅印記。咁呢位 artist 咧就將呢個農村嘅一啲婦女嘅洗衫板收集起嚟，跟住將佢哋拓印成一本書。咁呢一本嘅書咧，就正如呢一紮女人嘅一個人生嘅故事，佢咁樣將佢哋留念咗，擺成一個 artwork 喺度供人翻閱。咁樣冇錯，同埋頭先阿 Tobias 都有講到過，就係洗衫作為一個婦女嘅一個聯誼嘅地方啊，或者係閒話家常嘅地方，其實都真係集聚咗好多動人嘅故事，或者係一啲值得被記載嘅故事。咁所以我哋今次喺呢個展覽當中，除咗展覽咗女書嘅一卷卷嘅卷軸，都同樣地展出咗一個搓衣板使用嘅一個短片，咁就俾一啲可能21世紀嘅小朋友啊，或者係青年一啲好似我哋咁樣生活喺呢個大城市世界級城市嘅當中，可能好多人都未必知道洗衣板係乜嘢嘅，點樣用之類嘅情形。咁我哋就希望用呢一個作品都可以帶俾佢哋一個新嘅認知咯。我哋呢個展覽第4個問題就係我哋呢個展覽有冇其他華人 artist 用水墨嚟探討其他 topics 咧？咁呢個問題都好廣嘅，好好嘅問題。咁其實咧，就算係唔係華人 artist 都有世界上好多其他嘅 artist 嘗試用水墨嚟作出佢哋嘅創作，或者係華人 artist 用水墨嚟探究唔同種類嘅藝術探索都仲有好多種嘅。咁譬如話有一個我大概可以記得嘅就係台灣有一個 artist 咧，佢係直頭用 AI 嚟創作佢嘅水墨啦，即係佢將一套theory 一套 algorithm 輸入咗佢呢個 AI 入邊，咁個 AI 就會自己揸住個畫筆嚟創作佢嘅作品啦。咁佢呢個都係一個藝術嘅實驗性探索啦。咁另外咧都有譬如話 好似我哋頭先Howie Chen嗰個作品當中，佢都係一個好新嘅探索，就係佢用咗將佢自己水墨畫出嚟嘅一啲圖像啦，其實係有幾百個、幾千個圖像，但係佢將佢全部都輸入咗電腦，又係同樣地係用算法、用 AI 嘅方式，唔一定 AI 係算法嘅方式咧，將佢哋湊埋一齊。咁其實基本上你如果有機會嚟到睇到我哋呢個作品、呢個展覽咧，或者係之後 online 有機會睇到咧，你都會發現其實呢個Howie Chen徐浩恩嘅作品咧，佢唔係一個真正嘅動畫，因為佢係永遠都會隨住時間、隨住個算法嘅改變而不停咁樣演進嘅，所以基本上就係你唔會坐喺度見到同一個畫面發生兩次咯。咁佢係將呢啲水墨嘅 element、水墨嘅元素，用一個隨機嘅方式組成一個新嘅故事。咁呢個都係一個好新穎，或者係近呢20年、近呢10年，隨住科技嘅進步，先至有呢種狀況、呢種形式嘅水墨探索出現。咁如果話 topic wise 咧，咁呢個就古今中外有好多唔同類型嘅主題嘅水墨啦。咁好似我頭先有講到話，我哋今次探索嘅主要係一啲常規以外嘅議題。咁譬如話頭先我哋有一個切入點係可能我都未太帶出到嘅，就係其實咧我哋本身係想做更多關於性別同埋社會記錄嘅議題嘅作品嘅。咁譬如話事緣就係我哋策展人最開始點樣想做呢個展覽呢？就係因為佢第一次喺香港去過 Chen 當時仲在生嘅陳福善先生，佢喺灣仔嘅工作室就見到咧，其實 Chen 我哋通常都係知道佢中意畫魚啊、畫花啊、畫唔同類型嘅人啊。即係如果觀眾有去過妙香畫花齋，有嚟到我哋呢度，都會見到佢嘅作品係好色彩繽紛啊，或者係記錄咗好多城市嘅唔同面貌。但係有一個切入點係好多時我哋都冇留意到嘅，就係其實或者係值得更加被深入探究嘅咧，就係因為當時咧。陳福善先生佢嘅工作室係喺灣仔一條紅燈區嘅路上，咁所以咧佢嗰時就好似1920年代嗰個法國 artist Lautrec 嘅嗰個做法一樣，佢觀察咗好多關於紅燈區嘅日常，咁就有好多色欲啊，有好多燈藍火綠嘅活色生香嘅種種場面，佢都用佢嘅畫筆記錄咗落嚟。咁其實呢個本身都係一個我哋非常之希望可以着墨到嘅一系列嘅作品啦。咁可惜當然今次我哋由於篇幅所限或者係種種嘅原因，我哋未能夠展出。咁希望以後有機會觀眾有興趣嘅話，都可以去了解更多關於其他唔同嘅媒介、其他唔同嘅 topic、其他唔同嘅國家嘅藝術家對水墨藝術嘅新嘅探索，或者係舊有嘅作品而未能夠完全地深入地理解佢哋嘅。咁我諗我哋今日嘅呢個 Q&A 環節係咪都係差唔多咁多啦？係咯，咁就非常之多謝大家今日嘅時間啦。如果有興趣，非常之期待你哋喺7月31號、8月1號我哋展覽結束之前，有機會嚟到我哋嘅大館當代美術館，親身再體驗一次我哋嘅展覽。又或者係我哋今日呢個online 導賞團、線上導賞團咧，都會係再擺翻喺我哋 Instagram 同埋 Facebook 嘅 platform 嘅。咁有興趣嘅話，就隨時都可以再翻睇翻。又或者係我哋都上線咗我哋嘅 VR360虛擬展廳，咁都會喺我哋大館嘅網站度上咗線嘅。咁都歡迎各位觀眾喺呢個展覽物理上面完結咗之後，都可以喺我哋網站度重溫翻呢個展覽嘅實況，睇翻我哋種種嘅作品嘅細節啊、close up 啊，或者係佢嘅年份背後有啲咩故事呢，都可以歡迎你哋大家再上網重新探究一番嘅。多謝你哋。